Honourable members, please be seated. We will continue with the debate. And I give the floor to the Honourable Honorary Charlie. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to contribute to the debate on the amendment to the State Lands Act 1945. I do not know the history of the parcels of land that are in question, or this bill relate to. But the only thing I know is that they were Itauke land before. But now a state land. The state took over the land for its purpose, either for sugarcane planting or for something else. But the intent has changed. So there are issues about the land that the Itauke owners, traditional owners have, that need to be heard. That's the reason why we have been saying all along that we need consultation on important issues such as the one that we are talking about, particularly land. We should hear the stakeholders. The Itauke landowners are stakeholders, and they need to be given the right to comment on bills that affect their rights and their livelihood. As I say, the intent of the Act is good, but the way the Act is drafted is questionable. It needs to be looked at, and I will cite some of the areas of the bill that may need to be considered so that the intent is not lost. We focus on the intent of the bill. Let me refer, Mr. Speaker, to the explanatory note, part 1.4. It says, Honourable Speaker, sir, further, many of the lessees cannot be located or do not have the capacity to subdivide the land, which they sold a number of years ago. By amending the Act, we will be able to regularize the occupation of these lands and allow the occupants to build permanent homes through the mainstream financial system. What needs to be noted here, Mr. Speaker, sir, a situation where the lessees sold state land to illegal buyers. Both knew that the land belonged to the state, but they went ahead and engaged themselves in illegal deals. So I think this should be taken into account, because this Act is trying to regularize or formalize illegal dealing. The lessees and the buyers have breached the law by engaging in illegal sales. Both parties have committed offenses and should be charged. We should not be going after the lessees only. We should go for the people who have been part of the deal of this illegal sale. It is a concern that the bill proposes to regularize the illegal deals by formalizing lease arrangement with these illegal occupants. What I'm suggesting, Honourable Speaker, sir, the government should consider evacuating the land, all of them to go out, because they are illegal tenants, illegal occupants. Let's start fresh.
Where will they go?
The people, you will have to find out where they should go. The people of Fiji must be given the right to the land. All of them. Why should we be giving the right to the people who came there illegally, being illegal buyers of the land? Yeah? So they should be vacated and prosecuted. Not the way that this bill is proposing, that they be regularized and then they be formalized as legal tenants. I think this is wrong, and we should not support it. That's the reason why I'm not supporting this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the honourable member for his contribution to the debate. I now give the floor to the Honourable Minister Chone Usamate. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this, to the particular bill, a bill to amend the State Lands Act. I think the bill is trying to address something that has been is a big problem that we have with a lot of state lands. One is the problem of people just building illegally on state land, and the other is that when people have taken leases on state land, then they go into these illegal dealings, and some of them sell pieces of land illegally without the consent of the Director of Lands. And a lot of these people are have the understanding that and a lot of these people are very poor people. We're talking here about people that have hardly anything to their name. And everybody is looking for a bit of stability, a sense of security. So in good faith, they talk to the people that have the leases, and illegally they have these sorts of transactions. And this is something, I think, everybody that has served as Minister of Lands has seen this problem occur over and over again, these illegal transactions happening. When this comes to the notice of the Ministry of Lands, now what we do is that when the lease finishes off, the lease is taken over, but the people that are residing there, the land becomes, we give them, the portion of the land in which their homes is then leased to them, while the rest of the land, if it is agricultural land, it is then given out for people that want to be farmers. So it is a big problem that is perennially happening all the time. So any measure that we can have to try to address this, and at the same time give powers to the Director of Lands to be able to take the land back, to cancel the lease, is something that will help us to stop this problem. It's a big problem. We have a lot of problems with people using state land in a way that it is not meant for, and measures that we have in place that allow us to address this, to move us forward, is something that we will always support. And because we want to make sure at all times that state land is used in the manner that it is supposed to be used. But at the same time, the people that are living there, they have hardly anything to their name. We also have to look after their interests and try to make sure that we can give them some security for their lives into the future. While some people have suggested that this might lead to more people building on state land illegally in this way, there will be measures that will be put in place with the work of the committee and the work with the different government agencies, including the Ministry of Land, to try to see that this is minimized as much as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I thank the Honourable Minister for his contribution. I give the floor to the Honourable Tanya Wanganeka. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is my response to this amendment, Section 16 of the State Lands Amendment Act. It doesn't make any sense why government is legislating a provision of the lease agreement. We all know that any occupancy, apart from what was initially consented by the Director of Lands, are unlawful under lease agreement. Rarely do I find land being sold, Director of Lands, where Director of Lands has not consented, because to do so, that's fraud. Now, that being said, last month we saw the Investment Act and also the Informal Settlement Act. Both these laws were rushed through the August House through Order 51. Now, we all know that land is always sacred to anyone, regardless of their ethnicity, race, gender, or social status. And this is elections year. And we will soon be hearing that we're all pitching our election pitches here. Let's all be frank about it. Call it what it may. It is elections, and sadly all political parties, present and gone, will now dangle the carrots to our voters when the need arises. I am glad that our voters are better informed and better educated, and the fate of all members in this August House is in their hands. That being said, I only wish that issues of land, more so affordable housing, were brought to this August House much earlier, as housing more so is a key priority to any person. Last month, I mentioned that the Housing Authority concept of providing affordable housing is not working, and now we see a rush law that will somewhat or somehow elevate affordable housing for all our people. Do not get us wrong. We wholeheartedly support affordable, decent housing for all our people. But the process must be thought out properly because a lot of stakeholders will be affected. Any squatter hearing this bill may be thinking that their housing issue is finally solved. Unfortunately, it will not, because to benefit under this bill, number one, an arrangement must be in place between the lessee and the occupants of the land. So if there's no arrangement, this bill does not benefit you. Secondly, this arrangement is done without the consent of the Director of Lands. So if the Director of Lands has not consented, again, this bill does not benefit you. So if there's no arrangement in place between the lessees and the squatters or occupants of the land, and the Director of Land has not consented, the informal settlement law that we passed last month will be the whip on your back. I also said last month that there have been unprecedented squatter settlements from Lami to Nosori for the past 15 years. When I was at SEC, we controlled squatter settlement within the Suva municipality boundary, and we controlled it well. We engaged with the squatters, and we worked with them. That's why we have skip bins. They are part and parcel of any municipality. But the ultimate understanding was that they were staying on land that they had no legal tenure, and that one day the lessee or the landowner will come and reclaim what is legally theirs. We had political interference from Garris's government and also under the Bainibaram government, and our enforcement officers could not remove squatters from SEC land as they were told that government does not allow their removal. Such a hypocrisy when there are legal processes in place and governments usurp their roles over the laws. I say this because I had experienced it at Suva City Council. My concern, Mr. Speaker, is that when land is subdivided and sold, will the squatters be able to afford these lots? Or will it give rise to investors or the rich and the elite to move in and buy these lots when the squatters cannot afford it, thus deviating from the intent of this bill? We need to have a clear legal guideline on this. Hence, we are saying proper consultation with all stakeholders need to be taken into account. Do not rush this like all your other laws where we find ourselves caught in the back foot of legal challenges in court. My second concern, subdivided land, sold at a higher price, and the squatter moves on to another state land and looks at abusing the system. Namandai settlement. We have squatters selling their homes, not the land, 15 to 20,000, and then another one moves in.
Sir, point of order. The Honourable Member, I think she's, what the Honourable Sumathe once said, she's really meandering. The bill that is before us is to do with state land on which there are no squatters. It's to do with land where there is already somebody who has a lease, and that person has then allowed other people at a price, or sometimes without a price, to come and build homes there. What Honourable Member is talking about is about squatter land. The difference between that and squatter land is where people have just simply gone and built on that particular land without anybody's approval, without anybody actually having a lease over it. That's what you call squatter, and there's a huge difference between the bill that was passed by Parliament the other week, the last sitting, and what we are talking about now. Sir, the bill that was passed the other week, the other sitting, sir, was about where government has acquired a development lease to formalize an informal settlement. In most cases, sir, most of this land is Itoke land. So we've gone off and spoken to the landowners. They have, through TLTB, agreed to give us a development lease. And in that lease land, sir, we then have a development lease. We then are paying the money to the landowners on behalf of these people who were paying Vaka Vanu arrangements. and we want to then subdivide the land, build roads, water, electricity, all those types of utilities. And in instances where people don't move their house to realign, sir, that's when we have that law that allows us to help them to move, so they can still have that land. Honourable Wanganika is actually misleading Parliament by mixing both of them. We're not talking about that. We're talking about state lands where there is a lease, and somebody has then gone ahead without the consent of the director, given people the right to go and live in those lands. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable member, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unless I'm reading the explanatory note incorrectly, in 1.3 it says, in some instances, however, occupants of the land have, as a result of dispossession of land or due to political upheaval or cancellation or non-renewal of their leases or license, resorted to seek refuge on other land which they were not lessees under the Act. My understanding is this is state land. People have stayed on it without the two elements that I've mentioned. So my third concern, Mr. Speaker, I'm addressing you, sir. Most of these so-called abandoned leases may have annual lease rent being paid by the lessee, and they allow squatters to reside on the land based on humanitarian ground. The goodwill and humanitarian ground given by the lessee to the squatters is not appreciated by this government. The state in point is what I've mentioned about earlier, Suva City Council, and this amendment smacks the lessee right on their face. Now, my final concern, this will encourage more informal settlements. They will move into state land and find loopholes. Our people need affordable housing, which you are supposed
to... Against point of order, the honourable member, as a lawyer, should know that the amendment says that any land occupied prior to the enactment of this amendment, prior, not going forward, not prospective, but only prior to the enactment. Please, as a lawyer, don't mislead Parliament.
Thank you. Honourable member, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, because I can't find the word prior. I'll continue. Our people need affordable housing, which you're supposed to provide ages ago. Provision of affordable housing should be a key priority to any government. And I have not seen affordable housing, the affordable housing concept, but housing authorities, so it does not work. We saw their priority for that failed Fiji International Golf Tournament over the much needed housing of our people. Because I know that because I was part of the deal when we were at Fiji TV. Now, we know that you have the numbers in the House and then you'll pass this law, but please take into account our concerns, because obviously it's been rushed and the stakeholders' concerns, everyone's stakeholders' concerns have not been, we can see that it's not been addressed. Now, I've mentioned before the plight of the Solomon Islanders. Many are still residing on the land that do not belong to them, but they have been residing on land based on the arrangement done before the Betaroni Bonua in gratitude of their hard work. They came in 157 years ago. These were the people that came as slaves to build Suva. They were brought in as slaves. So DELPA will set up a commission of inquiry, and I pray that this bill that you brought in will not affect them. We will ensure that they will be given proper legal tenures. Now, the answer to this government and the incoming DELPA government, build affordable strata title properties. This is the way forward for our children, our nation. I don't dream because I own property. This law, like all other laws, need to be thoroughly consulted Fiji-wide. This is land. Nations go to war or people go to court because of land issues. I know it's state land. Government comes and government goes. Do it properly. Have a thorough consultation. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking, because in your haste, because we're now in elections year, in your haste to provide affordable housing to our people, you bring in a law that will have legal implications down the line. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. I do not support this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the honourable member for a contribution to the debate. Honourable members, you know there is a time limit on this agenda item. Now, I would have thought that you would have worked out your speaking time accordingly. Don't carry on as if it's an unending debate. I give license for time as well, but don't push your luck too far. Keep it to the essence. Honourable Minister Ephraim Mwangrimbete, you have the floor.
Honourable Speaker, I fully support the motion before Parliament. And the motion is Bill number 26 of 2022, the amendments to the state land. Honourable Speaker, we're talking about 4% of land in Fiji. 4%. And this amendment that we're talking about here, maybe what, 0.011%? 91% of land in Fiji is Itoke land. That's not being touched. So don't bring up this idea about Itoke land. That's not being touched. Please, we have young people here in the House. Don't confuse them with that thinking. The other land is freehold land. So we're talking about state land. Honourable Speaker, I want to start with the health perspective, and I want to come back and again address debate on some of the issues that have been brought from the other side. The bill allows the repossession of the lease if it has contravened the lease agreement in regards to informal sublease or informal arrangements, which is confirmed by the committee. The committee needs to confirm that this has not met the purposes of the lease on state land. It keeps the state lessee honest and strengthens the landlord or the state's ability or capability to monitor the lease. The bill will also help the landlord of the state to help provide surety to the informal settlers who settle there because of their arrangement with a former lessee, with the original lessee, and ensuring that the land can then be developed for their surety, so that they can have surety. They can be able to build themselves, they can have a title, they can be, that can be developed, they can have a title, they can build a house that can withstand a cyclone, they can have water, they can have proper sanitation. And I've talked about it in this August House, the Honourable Speaker, several times, how the social determinants of health help in health. How important it is to have a good house. How important it is to have proper water, sanitation, hygiene. All these contribute. This is what this amendment is helping to do. Honourable Speaker, this amendment will help in the development of the community in that area, the neighborhood, and also raise the value of the state land. Raise the value of the titles itself, the value of those titles, and also raise the value of the state lands. But more importantly, provide surety for those people who have, maybe they didn't know that it was the right way to do it, that are staying on that land. We've heard this morning how Honourable the Minister for Forest had talked about how this will be very helpful in the Nandi area. We all know that some people have been sold land at the end of the day has been done as a scam or sold a lease. This is to help these people. When it comes through comes through Order 51 or Order 55, at the end of the day, people are suffering. They need us to be able to support them, to get surety. Honourable Speaker, go back again to what I've talked about earlier. Yesterday when we brought this, when the Honourable Attorney General brought this to Order 51, I was quite amazed at the debate that came from the other side. Honourable Speaker, it's now nearly 4 years of our existence in this Parliament. I can't believe that throughout these 4 years, the same rhetoric comes from the other side. The rhetoric about, every land, whether it's freehold or state, has to go back, we have to find the original landowners. Honourable Speaker, I've said this in this Honourable Parliament before. If some of those things they're saying from the other side could be done, it would have been done by the colonial government. It would have been done by Ratumara, the late Ratumara. It would have been done by when the leader of Papi was Prime Minister. It would have been done by Mr. Garce. It would have been done by them. They didn't because legally they can't. Legally they can't. And I think we have to remember that we must move forward. And this is a way in which we could move forward. You're talking about the 4%, which is state land, not the 91%. Not the land in Moala where I come from, that's still sure. We talk about the 4%. State land. Who are the landlords of state land? The state. The state is the owner of the state land. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Minister. I give the floor to the Honourable Pio Tikondondo. You have the floor.
I thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, before I start my intervention on this bill, may I just take this opportunity, Honourable Speaker, to wish all of our nurses a happy International Nurses Day today. Thank you. Honourable Speaker, I want to say unequivocally that the National Federation Party supports the amendment to this bill. But we hope that the committee that has been established under the amendment to this act is going to do its work properly, because they will need to do a lot of hard work to make sure that they are fair and perceived to be equal to everybody. So let me make that statement very clear, also, Honourable Speaker. But before I go on further into my contribution to this bill, let me just correct Honourable Speaker to reply to some of the sentiments that were echoed earlier by my learned friend, the Honourable Minister for Fisheries, Honourable Correa Lebesau. Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Minister is unfortunately sorely mistaken. It is the people now who are tired of this government. Okay. They are tired of this government, not the opposition, Honourable Speaker. Okay. The fact of the matter, the people of Fiji, Honourable Prime Minister, the fact of the matter, the people are tired of this government. And you know why? Because this government is boring. It is boring. It's boring in every aspect of its governance. So I am saying this, Honourable Speaker, they are tired of the false promises. It's the government, not the opposition. Okay? They're tired of all the unfulfilled promises. Okay? Well, don't worry, Minister. I'm going to give you a few examples. Okay? Okay?
Order.
They're tired about it. I mean, has anyone really been monitoring how many people follow the procedures of this House? It has dwindled significantly, Honourable Speaker. And you know why? Because they're tired of one man talking all the time, telling Fijians how they should behave. But this is what we are tired of, you know. So they're tired of the opposition. And let me correct my honourable friend. They are not tired of us, they're tired of you. And also, let me say one other thing also. He also said that farmers were told to vacate their farms and land by the opposition. And then I'm just saying, he should name who, which opposition. Do not generalize, Honourable Minister. Because this is the kind of gutter-level politics that has destroyed, Honourable Speaker, the goodwill between landlords and the tenant, okay, in the past, and this government, in its desperation to remain in power, is shamelessly adopting the same lies. So, Honourable Speaker, that is my reply to Honourable Correa Lebesau. And I just want to reassure him, you know, Honourable Minister, it's not us. It's you and your team. Honourable Speaker, this amendment to this bill, let me say, Honourable Speaker, that we support it because sorry, let me get my notes. Okay. The Honourable Speaker believes, okay, that confidence comes out from security, and giving people security of tenure to build their lives, their livelihoods, and the livelihoods of their families are things that the National Federation Party has always supported historically. So this is one main reason why we believe that this bill will be good for the people, particularly those that are immediately in need. Now, but I want to take this opportunity also to raise this point, Honourable Speaker, and that is, I know the Honourable Attorney General continues to talk about this bill not applicable to people that are in squatter settlements. But I say, Honourable Speaker, that government should, listen and pay attention also to the needs of people who are illegal settlers and are living in squatter settlements on land that belongs to the state. Okay, it is a different matter. Okay, it's paying attention to those that are settling on a legal lease, but there are also the same Fijian people who are settling on government land, but as illegal tenant. Okay, this proposal, this amendment, really is taken care of those that have been settling illegally on what was a legal lease, where the land otherwise would have dealt with this, in a different way. But what about those people who know provisions, okay, because people are talking about equality, so how about us?
We are already dealing with that under separate law.
So, this is okay. But Honourable Speaker, I'm saying, okay, that's fine. But you should, they should, as much as possible, I mean, why are they not rushing the same bills through? We are not, why are not, I mean, it's not being rushed through. Okay, so I'm just saying the government should listen to these people, take their plight into concern, and then deal with it. Huh? Yeah. Well, Honourable Speaker, we have been going, the National Federation Party has been around the country. Like I said, we've been an advocate of this. We have heard from the people who have been talking about this for the last 15 years, Honourable Speaker. The last 15 years. What has happened? Has government finally restored its sight? Have you finally found your ears? That this has finally come today? What has happened before? Anything happened before? No one has done. I mean, the government is here for the last 15 years. Why now? Okay? But I must say, Honourable Speaker, because this is synonymous with the false promises government gives all the time. Okay? And it is trying to please the people. And obviously it should have done it 15 years ago. I mean, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Minister Bala went up to Sakoda in 2014. They're still waiting for him. They've still been waiting for him. And he's done absolutely nothing about it, Honourable Speaker.
Order.
So, Honourable Speaker, let me say, our people, particularly those who are marginalized and are unfortunate in our society, deserve to be given proper tenure and security. That is why we are supporting this bill here today. The National Federation Party supports it. And let me reiterate again, this government is bored and they need to go. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for his contribution to the debate. I give the floor to the Honourable Fire Squire. You have the floor. Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, sir. Honourable Speaker, just a point of clarification with respect to comments made by Honourable Wanganika. And true to its form, Honourable Speaker, they always read one part of the paragraph and they don't read the other. I think she referred to paragraph 1.3 of the State Lands Amendment Bill in the explanatory note. And it says, in some instances, however, occupants of the land have, as a result of dispossession of land or due to political upheaval or cancellation or non-renewal of their leases or licenses, resorted to seek refuge on other land for which they were not lessees under the Act. It goes on, Honourable Speaker, and I think it's wise that we actually read this out. The lessees who permitted such persons to use the land in these instances, however, did not obtain the consent of the Director of Lands, making the arrangement unlawful under the Act. it would be wise to read the whole paragraph, Honourable Member, because that's misleading the general public. Honourable Speaker, sir, I thank you for allowing me to contribute to the debate on this, on the bill before the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, as pointed out by Honourable Minister for Health, once again, let me just explain that the proposed amendments relate only to state land, not freehold, not itoke land, and it's not wise to bring about some other argument, Honourable Gavoka. But I just wanted to re-emphasize that point at most of the time, as there seems to be there's some selective hearing and misrepresentation made by the opposition members. Honourable Speaker, sir, the State Lands Act was actually enacted in 1945. And past governments, and I say this quite loudly, sir, past governments did not have the vision and drive to solve the evolving issues surrounding state land ownership, Honourable Speaker, sir. It's this government, Honourable Speaker, that is now addressing the pertinent land issues that have been affecting our people residing on state land for decades. Mr. Speaker, sir, political upheavals, particularly the 1987 coup coupled with the expiry of 30-year altar leases, have contributed immensely to the displacement and dispossession of Fijians from the land they were residing in and earning their livelihoods. This has left many with no sense of ownership, Honourable Speaker, sir, and they have not been able to use their land as a form of collateral to obtain bank loans for the construction of their homes, for example. Due to these problems, occupants have not been able to secure their own individual leases. The 2013 Constitution, Honourable Speaker, reaffirms the Fijian government's commitment and the vision of our Honourable Prime Minister of not leaving any Fijian behind and to ensure that every Fijian has a right to shelter, Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are creating an enabling environment through the amendments of the State Lands Act to empower the Director of Lands to re-enter the land and cancel the lease only after it has been determined that the lessee had contravened the conditions of the lease. This will only happen if there was no consent obtained from the Director of Lands and subsequently selling off or allowing occupants to settle on the land. By empowering the Director of Lands in allowing the occupants who have been victims of the head lessee's laxities in obtaining consent on behalf of the occupants, we're actually ensuring the livelihood of the occupants and their beneficiaries, and so that they are secured over the long term by providing a sense of security. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the past, no government has even thought about the plight of the occupants and their extended families who've been living under a cloud of uncertainty all of these years and have been struggling to secure ownership. This government has now given them hope, Honourable Speaker, for a better tomorrow through the support of the mainstream financial system, which enables them to access grants in relation to land surveying and first home owners grants, etc. There is so much more attached to this amendment. Mr. Speaker, sir, this government has worked smart in ensuring that everything falls into place for our people in terms of having an enabling legislation and access to finance, and much more with the ultimate aim of making the lives of Fijians easier. Mr. Speaker, sir, many of the occupants who have actually been living illegally on state land will be regularized through the subdivision process and will be able to proudly own or construct their first homes and also be able to use it as collateral for future extensions. I'm confident that the committee responsible also, Honourable Speaker, will thoroughly investigate. They'll take into account all facts pertaining to the issuance of initial head lease and the subsequent conditions of the lease. I'm also certain of the fact that all occupants, all affected occupants, will be given due consideration by the committee on a case-by-case basis, which will enable them to provide sound and informed recommendations to the Director of Lands. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to echo the similar sentiments as the Honourable Attorney General that the rights of all occupants, including the lessee, will be protected under these amendments. In fact, they have never been more secure except for under this government, Honourable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, just to conclude, as a Minister responsible for town and country planning, also it gives me great pleasure to see such revolutionary reforms undertaken that unlocks our true potential as we forge Fiji ahead. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for allowing me to contribute, and I support the bill.
I thank the Honourable Minister for his contribution to the debate. I now give the floor to the Honourable Moses Bulletau. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Sir, I rise to give my contribution to the bill that is before the House, Bill number 36. Let me break down the bill. The bill deals with the state land. 2, the landlord is the director of lands. And the issue that's the bill addresses is that given some of the lessees cannot be located and they cannot subdivide the land. But due to other circumstances that's alluded to by the Honorable Minister of Square, on those that come in to occupy the land through the arrangement of the head leasing, resulting in dispossession of land, or political upheaval, or cancellation, or non-renewal of their lease. So they have a refugee status on that particular portion of land, and they have no legal standing. And this particular bill aims to address, to give them a legal standing so that they can access financial support, housing assistance, plus other community development that they will be left behind without any proper legal standing. The bill, in one of the part of section, it amends section 16, where a committee will be established by a regulation from the current act, and the committee is just tasked to confirm any contribution by the lessee on the terms and conditions of the lease. So from that, the second part of section 16, which is amendment 6, is to allow and empower the director of lands to re-enter and regularize occupants and lessees. This gives occupants brought in by lessees to gain proper lease and standing and tenancy security. For just the avoidance of doubt, I'll refer you to clause 8 of the bill on section 2, subsection 8. For the avoidance of doubt, any occupant of the land referred to under this section, including the lessee, shall remain on the land subject to any terms and conditions on the lease, license and approval of notice of lease granted after the enactment of the State Lands Amendment Act 2022. So after we enact this, then the new conditions and terms will apply to the lessee plus the occupants. So the argument that those that have come in illegally will be displaced, that is taken care of in that particular subsection. So this is just to legalize and regularize the current occupation plus the head leasing. And some cannot be located because some of the sales have been done in the last 40 years. And this is something that is really good for those that live in this particular area, and also the access to things that the community will benefit from, and also they cannot access now. And I think it's also, it targets our National Development Plan plus the Sustainable Development Goals, where no one is left behind. And this particular amendment will allow those in that area, occupants and lessees, to have proper legal standing. And I will support this particular bill, given that the issues that are faced by these particular people in these particular areas will be addressed, and it will ensure the tenant security of those individuals, lessees, and plus the occupants in that particular area, so that they are able to develop and also benefit from the main financial stream. Now,
I thank the honourable member for his contribution to the debate. Give the floor to the honourable Simeone Rosovo. You have the floor.
Oh, thank you.
Don't say oh.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on the bill, Bill 26 of 2022 for an act to amend the State Lands Act of 1945. Likewise, Mr. Speaker, sir, your involvement with Wunambalawu, I'd like to extend also my congratulations to Mere Tisalalo Naulumatua, also known as Mere Samsoni, Dr. Samsoni. Thank you very much. Welcome back on the third time into Parliament. Mr. Speaker, in regard to this bill, excuse me?
Honorable member, address the chair. Don't carry on a conversation.
They are disrespecting your position, sir. That's why.
Don't carry on a conversation with the opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
You have the floor.
Yes, Bill 26 of 2022 has come 4 years late in regard to this tenure of Parliament. It should have come in 2018. This thing here, I mean, the Honourable Minister Fayez Sadiq Kwaya has said there is no other government that has done this. The Alliance government took over for 17 years and there was a coup. Election yang gara say of the sama-sama dua bata ni Leni Vanua SDL made a coup in 2006, December of 2006. So they could not implement. And this government has been in power for the last 16 years. This bill has come 16 years late.
Order.
Nandra. Only until Nandra helps. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill here, I mean, in regard to, thank you, the Honourable Ayased Qayyum in introducing this bill yesterday. Now, Bill 50, Standing Order 51 gives us only 24 hours to discuss the bill, saying that there is a committee out there with the chairman of the, we were kind of surprised that the chairman is the Permanent Secretary for Housing Community, which falls under the Honourable Ayased Qayyum's portfolio as Housing and Land Community. And his Permanent Secretary, he will be heading, even though this is a land, should have come under the Permanent Secretary for Land, under Honourable Chone Usumati's portfolio, but then it has come this way. So this is why most of the things that we are reading is not transparent. That's why we are likewise with other members of the opposition, other members of the opposition. You listen so you can learn. Mr. Speaker, sir, that other members have said that this bill needs consultation, needs serious consultation because it involves land. It's not only the land, as Honourable Ayased Qayyum says, it involves Naindovi, Navo, Nassau, Solovi, Malolo Transit Road. And it involves also Nosuri area where the Manotha flats and also around Nabua, which were given to CSR and also FSC. Now, these are state freehold lands. And as alluded by the members of the opposition, that especially Honourable Andre Chale, saying that this land has to be reverted, the funding. Once the leases are made, it has to be reverted to the true owner. This was given on trustee to the state. And now that the agreement, they have breached the agreement, they have done housing, they have done other businesses, they have breached the agreement in which the land was given by the trustee, by the landowners, by Itoke landowners. So they've breached the agreement there and they should revert. I mean, this part of the House welcomes the bill because it benefits the people of Fiji in regard to the rental. Given a title, we support that. But in the manner that it has come to this House of Standing Order 51 and not detailing the very basic of it, who is going to be the recipient? Maybe all these people are going to be the recipient. Nobody knows. Because it's not publicly known. Excuse me? Minister of Health is a public recipient. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I asked for Standing Order 51. Now, by soon after this, once the right of reply is done, said by Honourable Ayased Qayyum, it will be passed as law. But then it only took about, 2 hours for us to make it as law. And that is unfair. I represent the Eastern Division of Fiji from Kandavu, Lomaiviti, Lau, Rotuma. These people have no idea. And some of the land are also state land. And it will, as you have said over there, Mr. Ayas said, Kim said, also there are places around Fiji where there is similar situations. So the idea is to regularize this. So other places in Fiji, they should know. We should go around all over Fiji because the state lands that were given, the Itoke land by an LTB on the trustee that was given to the state, they must know in the detailed form, Mr. Speaker, sir. Very soon you might as well watch Mbau Island. They might even sell it to Honorable in the way they're doing it. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is my contribution to the...
Just stick to the subject. Just stick to... Forget about Mbau Island. Stick to the subject.
Order Setting Order 51 is not a joke.
Order.
Okay, there are the other places that you said, Honourable, as said, other places in Fiji which reflect this, and it's the same principles. And Honourable Pramila Kumar, in regard to the settlements of Freehold, if you can, if this bill has come in on the state land, I think also your
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Suva has been meandering. He's been talking about Standing Order 51. We discussed that yesterday. That's why it was brought up yesterday. Yesterday's debate on Standing Order 51 was to discuss Standing Order 51. Today is about discussing the substantive bill that's before you. And he's been meandering all over the place. And you should withdraw that statement that you made, that Mbau will be sold. You should stand up and withdraw it. There are many people in this August House that have Mbau genealogy and blood within them. That's very, very bad of you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Probably I should rephrase, maybe Mbau landing. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, I withdraw, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, in regard to Honourable Pramila Kumar, in regard to the settlements. She's been hopping around that they have to do this with the law, they have to give the title and everything. And if this has come into Standing Order 51 today, yesterday, and for us to debate today and become law today, I think she can do something likewise in the settlements in Fiji. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is my contribution to the Bill 26 of 2022. I do not support the bill in this current form. Mr. Speaker, sir.
I thank the Honourable Member for his contribution to the debate. Give the floor to the Honourable Sanjay Kirpal. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support of the motion for an act to amend the State Lands Act 1945, which was tabled yesterday afternoon to this August House by Honourable Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think most of the opposition members, they don't understand about the state land, freehold land, and Itoke land. I think the two members who understand are not in the parliament. Honourable Michele Bolaniuda, Honourable Nengama. Honourable Nengama has been a minister for lands. Honourable Michele Bolaniuda has been a minister for lands, and they are absent from this parliament. And the person who understands about this bill is Honourable Boletabu, who knows about what is about this bill all about. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is necessary to amend this act to allow for the informal settlements within the state land to be regularized and to stop illegal activities in the state land in future. It has been from decades that some of the agricultural lessees have sold their residential lots to individuals, families, and from their lease by way of sale and purchase agreement without the consent from the Director of Lands, and this sale and purchase has been endorsed by the lawyers. The residential lots are sold without being surveyed. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have also come across that in some cases there has been some more than one lessee to a lease, and these lessees share the land for farming. One of the lessees sell or give residential plot to their family member or to an outsider from his or her share of farming portion, and when one of the lessee dies, then the problem emerges when the surviving lessee or the beneficiary of the deceased demands for more money or give eviction notice to those lessees, to those Thus, those informal settlers has no choice but to run around knocking the lands department doors and other avenues. Mr. Speaker said there are many cases in this nature where we have seen that the poor families are struggling to get a proper lease just because they purchased the land in an illegal manner not known to them. This bill will give those families a sign of relief as they can get a surveyed lot with registered 99 years lease, residential lease, which will enable them to mortgage their lease to build a decent house, which I think Honorable Gavoka don't want those people to have a decent house. This will ease social problem and families can have decent housing with proper sanitation, roading, drains, etc. Mr. Speaker said the bill will refrain the agricultural lessees from breaching the lease conditions and will keep their land in good husbandry manner. If the lessees want to subdivide residential or commercial lots from the agriculture's holding, then they have to follow the proposed State Lands Act, or else they will know the consequences of the breach of lease conditions as their lease can be re-entered. This will be a way forward for proper subdivisions in future, and existing informal settlement will regularize in state land. Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate and heartily support Honorable Attorney General for this amendment of State Lands Act, which is brought about, and humbly request all members of this August House to fully support this bill. And as Honorable Pio has been saying, how can this nation trust a leader like Biman Prasad, who runs away from a talk-back show? Do we need a leader like Honorable Biman Prasad, who runs away from the talk-back show? I hope the people, and then he goes and collision with the puppy. So with all those words, once again I support this bill. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member and give the floor to the honourable Sesh. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I also thank the Honourable Attorney General for his motion. My contribution to the motion will be very brief. When we talk about this bill, two questions come to mind. One, how did this land parcel was acquired by the state? Two, what were? Number two, what was the original purpose? What was the original purpose of this acquisition? Sir, we support development on the land and the security of tenure, but wider consultation should be done, especially with the customary landowners. Land acquisition in Fiji is governed under the State Acquisition of Lands Act. Under the Act, all types of land can be acquired for public purposes. This is what the State Acquisition of Lands Act said in Section 3, power to acquire land. 1, subject to other provisions of this Act, an acquiring authority may acquire lands required for any public purpose, paying such consideration and compensation as may be agreed upon or determined under the provisions of this Act. Number 2, an acquisition under this section must not proceed unless the necessity for the acquisition is such as to provide reasonable justification for the causing of any resultant hardship to a person having an interest in the lands. Sir, most of the land mentioned by the Honourable Attorney General in his motion were acquired with the purpose of planting sugarcane through CSR, Colonial Sugar Refinery. According to the Honourable Attorney General's submission yesterday, he mentioned, and I quote, "We will be able to get proper subdivisions done." And Mr. Speaker said, of course, these people will get certainty. They can then go to banks, mortgage their house, their leases, and build concrete homes. And of course, that creates a lot more economic activity. So that is what this Act seeks to do, unquote. Sir, clearly we may have deviated from the original purpose of acquiring these land parcels. Section 8 of the Crown Lands Act provides, and I quote, when any native land which is being acquired by the Crown for public purposes under the provisions of the Crown Acquisitions of Lands Act or any other written law is no longer required for such purposes, the Minister, after consultation with the Cabinet, may by order declare such land to be native land, and such declaration shall be recorded in the name of the unit from which it was acquired and in the register of the native lands kept under the provisions of Section 8 of the Native Lands Act. Sir, on behalf of the Abusai Tolu of Nabatulevu, of the Vanua Nandi, and other landowners around Fiji whose land have been acquired for public purpose and are currently considered as state land, we call on government and the committee that will look after these lands to also consider, please consider reverting these land parcels to the original landowners. Sir, we support the development of this state land, but do it properly in consultation with all stakeholders. Thank you, sir.
I thank the honourable member for his contribution to the debate. I now give the floor to the last speaker before the right of reply, the Honourable Ratutevita Navurelevu. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the motion before the House this morning. We all understand that the land in Fiji is categorized in three categories. The freehold, which is privately owned, the native or Itauke land owned by the landowner unit, and the state land, which is owned by the government. We all understand that there are about 18,000 leases in the state land, and about 4% of the land is state land, administered by the Department of Land. In addition, all four source land below main water mark, the soil under Fiji waters, and beds of navigable rivers and streams are state land. State land is not sold out, but some available on a leasehold basis. State leases are granted and managed by the Department of Land. Mr. Speaker, we are concerned that such a far-reaching piece of legislation are brought into the House under Standing Order 51, as previously alluded by the previous Speaker of the Opposition. While we support the development, Mr. Speaker, and access to the land, but the process must be followed in a proper manner. Consultation amongst the relevant stakeholders should always be paramount and sensitive when sensitive issues such as land is a subject of discussion, in particular in making amendments that affect relevant stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, I wish to show my disappointment, not only my disappointment, but the disappointment of the Maduata Provincial Council or the Maduata Holdings on the process, on the manner, how they rejected the Maduata Holding Development List, which is now so-called in Nayada subdivision, where now the FLU located. We were not consulted, and they revoked the list. There were a development list, and the subdivision was being started, and we have $600,000 debt for that development in the other list. And when we built the Maduata house and we went to the bank, and the bank, FDB, gave a condition, only if you include the other debt of $600,000 into the package, then we will approve the loan, which we built Maduata house. Therefore, I show a disappointment that the government should have come to Maduata Provincial Council and consult us regarding this list. disappointment embraced when we come to know that the development list was being revoked, rejected, and gave to other stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, I would reiterate that I said earlier.
Don't carry on a conversation between you two.
He's only talking to me, I'm not talking to him. See? We support the development, but the processes must be undertaken, and we don't find ourselves in a situation to encounter problem in the future.
I thank the honourable member for his contribution to the debate. I stand corrected. There is one more speaker before the right of reply, and I give the floor to the Minister for Defence, Honourable Minister Iniesta Ruiratu. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Very briefly, I do support the bill for obvious reasons. But let me just correct the Honourable Ratu Tevita Naburlevu, Mr. Speaker, sir. Despite his disappointment, the proper process was done for the return of Nayada subdivision to FNU, Mr. Speaker, sir. He was in the provincial office during that time. Turang Tui Maduata, the then Turang Tui Maduata, Ratu Asia Katinvere, together with the Rokutui, were consulted. They gave their approval, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, it was under Maduata Provincial Council, Mr. Speaker, sir. But there was no development taking place for so many years. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable, the then Minister for Lands, Netani Sunaiwalu, came to the Northern Division. There was a consultation, and the then Tui Maduata and the then Rokutura Maduata gave their permission for that land, because they were not doing anything on it, to be returned so that FNU can go ahead with the development. So that should be. Mr. Speaker, I have said that I support this bill for 4 obvious reasons. I leave the legality aspects of it to the Honourable Minister for Economy and the Honourable Attorney General, because I'm not a lawyer. But it's logic and common sense that leads me to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir. One, it's out of empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. We leaders must be concerned about what difficulties that our people face. These are ordinary Fijian citizens suffering as a result of an archaic law. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, they are our own people. They are our own communities. Most of them are farming communities, Mr. Speaker, sir. Out of empathy, I support this bill. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, out of necessity. It is a necessity, Mr. Speaker, sir. We need to regularize this. We need to legalize this. Of course, it was not done in the proper way. But it's going to take ages again if we have to go as suggested by the Honourable Charlie, Mr. Speaker, sir. It's out of necessity that we need to do this out of 51. This government is always pragmatic. We see that there is a problem. What is the solution? Let's fix it. This is what this government is doing, fixing it rather than delaying it, Mr. Speaker, sir. Should have been done ages ago. Should have been done ages ago. But it was not done. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is why about timing, they are always concerned about elections, because that's what politicians do. This is leadership. This is leadership. This is true leadership. There is a difference between politics and leadership. What we need in this country is true leadership in politics. And this is what this government is doing, Mr. Speaker, sir. It's out of necessity. 3, economic benefits. We talk about diversifying the economy. There's a lot of unutilized land in Fiji that cannot be fully utilized because of this law. This is the same thing with Itoke land, Mr. Speaker, sir, when it was expiring from 1997. People had the money. They can invest. But they are holding on to that investment because this is not there. They cannot do it. Because no one in his right state of mind would invest if there is no security of tenureship. As I've stated, Mr. Speaker, it's logic and common sense that we need to fix this. Economic benefits, the farmers are waiting. People will build better homes. That's another industry that will benefit from this. And with homes, Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible for disaster management, look at the data from previous disasters. These are the people that have their houses damaged, destroyed after every disaster. Why? Because they don't want to put the investment. This will address resilience. We have shifted our development paradigm. Not only development for the sake of development, but resilience must be at the core of development. Sustainability must be at the core of development. And addressing humanitarian principles. This is about human beings. This is about people. And we need to address resilience, because more into resilience now means lesser expenses into the future. This is an investment, Mr. Speaker. I support the bill.
I thank the Honourable Minister for his contribution to the debate. I now call upon the Attorney General to speak in reply. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I'd like to thank all the members who've spoken in favour of the bill. I have to, unfortunately, respond to some of the fairly mundane issues that have been raised by some of the members on the floor, but also some of the very misleading statements. So I'd like to, just to start off with Honourable Wanganika, very slowly read the Act, the amendment. If you see Clause 2, in Subclause 4, sir, it says on page 2, on the top of the page, it says, notwithstanding anything contained in any other written law or term or condition of a lease, license, approval, notice of lease, the Director of Lands may, when arrangement or agreement has been made by a lessee in contravention of the section prior to the enactment of the State Lands Amendment Act 2022, re-enter the land and cancel the lease. She said she could not see prior to enactment. I'm just pointing out to her, and I'm glad that she's now agreeing by nodding her head, that she has now seen the prior to the enactment of the Act. So it does not open the doors, as she was trying to imply, and indeed scare everybody else in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I'd like to make, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that I'll start off by some of the issues that she had also raised, Honourable Pio Tikunduandua, about, they talked about the squatter developments and why have they not taken place, and they seem to misunderstand this. As highlighted by Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Seratu and Honourable Minister for Lands and others, that this particular amendment relates to where somebody actually has a lease or had a lease, and during the term of the lease decided to allocate lots of that land or parcels of that land within the parcel of lease they had to other people. Sometimes they gave it to them for a fee, or as Honourable Kirpal says, that they entered into sale and purchase agreement. The lawyers, of course, were also at fault. They should not have facilitated that. They should know that the person should have got a consent. But of course, as we know, lawyers did not follow the law. And so they entered into those arrangements. In other arrangements, you could have somebody's, uncle who said, look, you've just booted out because of 1987 from Bar. You can come and build your house here in this corner of my lot, and you can stay on. The uncle is now dead. The son or daughter is there, and their son or daughter is there, and this person's son or daughter has now occupied the land. Nobody has proper tenure. In some cases, the people have migrated. They've disappeared. They can't be found. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is what we need to understand. That's what this law pertains to. What they were talking about is squatters, where there's crown land, like Navakai. Honourable Lalambalawu hit the nail on the head, and Honourable Kirpal actually made a very, acute observation that both the former Minister for Lands aren't here. I don't know whether by choice or they deliberately did that, or whether, some reason or the other, because they know what we are talking about, what we're trying to address. The squatter issue, sir, is where there's no lease. There's simply Itoke land or crown land, in this case state land, is there, and people have just come and built, and nobody stopped them. One of the reasons, sir, for example, why the Director of Lands post-87 did not do anything about it, because they knew that many people had become what we call NDPs, IDPs, internally displaced persons. They had nowhere else to go. Honorable Gavoka does not talk about that. Honorable Tuisawau, Honorable Saukuru, they don't talk about that. They are IDPs in this country. They had nowhere to go. When leases, for example, were not renewed, Honorable Bhiman Prasad, you should know this. When they were not renewed, Mr. Speaker, sir, they all end up in squatters. All end up as squatters. They don't talk about that. Honorable Charles so flippantly, as a former permanent secretary, I thought would have a bit more empathy when he said, put them all out. We said, where will they go? Oh, deal with it. These are human beings. Honorable Nalumatua talked about empathy, about love. Where is that? Where is that?
Missing that side.
Mr. Speaker, sir. And they talk about, oh, the goodwill of the landowners. Yes, they have leased the land. They've also made money from that land when they leased the land. These people have got nowhere to go. Nobody talks about that. Today in New Zealand, 5.6% of the land is native title. Only 5.6%. In Australia, after Mabo, 32% became native title. And most of it is the internal desert area of Australia. Fiji is one of the settler countries that has 91% of all the land it is native title. Mr. Speaker, sir, this Prime Minister actually did something proactive about it. They all talked about it. All of them, former Prime Ministers, talked about it. He, Mr. Speaker, said we'll do subdivision of Itokia land, make them asset rich and cash rich also. We are the only government that has done that. The leader of Papi and Garase converted Itokia land to freehold land. When we have pointed that out, they said, oh, that was the law. That was the law. So it allowed to do it, so let's do it. This is also the law. They are now questioning state land. Let me read you a quote, Mr. Speaker, sir, from the deed of cession. This is where it comes from. One of the clauses from deed of cession. And it says, one of the clauses, that the absolute proprietorship of all lands not shown to be now alienated so as to become bona fide the property of Europeans or other foreigners, in other words, freehold land, or not now in the actual use or occupation of some chief or tribe, or not actually required for the probable future support and maintenance of some chief or tribe, shall be and is now hereby declared to be vested in Her Majesty the heirs and successors. This was signed by all the chiefs, Mr. Speaker, sir, except, of course, there is only one chief from the Western Division. All of the others were from the Eastern Division and, of course, the Southern Division. That formed the basis of land tenureship in Fiji. And that was subsequently passed on to the 1970 Constitution, the 1990 Constitution, the 1997 Constitution, and the 2013 Constitution. That has been the basis of it. I know Honorable Tuisawau is going to do some fancy footwork tomorrow on this, but I will take him on. There was a case also, Ratu Peli Kanakana case, where he challenged the freehold conversion of the Suva Peninsula, and we all know what happened to Suva Peninsula. Ratu Seru Dakambau gave it away as compensation to some American ship owners because somebody set fire to one of the ships. He said, you can have this. I'm the Tuiviti. You can have this land. That's how it became freehold land. You go to Mbua, you go to Savusavu. These lands were actually given away. Of course, some of the people converted Itokia land to freehold land for a few muskets. It did happen. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, as the judgment in this court holds, that the tenure through the constitutional means still holds. It does not mean, Mr. Speaker, sir, at independence 1970, 81 to 83% of all the land in Fiji was Itokia land, what we call native title. Today, 91%. Schedule A and B has gone back to the landowners. Some of them are extinct Matangalis. Those Matangalis don't exist. There's a trust fund there, Mr. Speaker, sir, also. Some of those monies have been put to good use. But today, 91% of all the Itokia land is Itokia title, native title. The question that needs to be asked, what is happening with those lands? Every single town in Fiji except for Suva and Ba is all on Itokia land. Navua, Singatoka, Nandi, Latoka, Tavua, Rakiraki, all Itokia land. They're getting lease monies from that. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the fact that nearly 99% of all the hotels in Fiji are built on Itoke land. They get lease monies from there. Some of them have shares in profits. Of course, some of those lease conditions should have been a lot better. When did it happen? In the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Not when this government was around, Mr. Speaker, sir. So, see, this is what you need to come to this parliament with facts, with intellectual honesty. Mr. Speaker, sir, so they have, as we expected, but I thought common sense will prevail. As we expected, they want to turn this into an Itoke versus other people issue. They know, Honorable Saukuru, you know very well, that Schedule A and B has been returned. All of these lands that are under state land, there is no dispute. There is no claim being made, Mr. Speaker, sir. And as the
Attorney General, Honorable Attorney General is misleading Parliament. I was talking about state acquisition of lands. Native lands were taken in for purpose, for the purpose of the state. When they deviate from that, it should be returned. That's what the law says. It should be returned to the original landowner.
Sir, I'll come back to that. Mr. Speaker, sir, but the fact is, Schedule A and B has been returned. All of the state land that the Director of Land actually deals with, there is no claim on it. There is no encumbrance on it from any native title owner. That's why it is state land. There's no dispute about it. They are now trying to say there is a dispute about it. Coming here and standing here and saying, oh, on behalf of this landowning unit, I'm making the submission. No submission has been made. No claim has been made against the Director for Lands in the past 40, 50, 180 years. The ones that have to be returned have been returned. In respect of lands that have been acquired for public purpose, that's a separate issue. Public purpose means where the public actually uses it, where there's a road, where there's a reservoir, where there's an airport, where there's a hospital. That's what it relates to. There is no road there. There is no public road there. There is no airport there. There is no hospital there. There is no reservoir there. He knows that, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir.
The Attorney General should not be lying in Parliament. Then why haven't they returned the Lautoka water catchment to the original landowners? Why haven't they returned when it's a service purpose? Vaturu Dam is there.
Honorable
Mr. Speaker, sir, Vaturu Dam is Itoke land. It's not state land. Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir. And we are not talking about Vaturu Dam. We are talking about, please.
Order.
See, don't be clutching at straws. We are talking about lands where it has already been leased. Lands that have already been leased to somebody, where there is no dispute about it. And these people who held the leases have subsequently then go and informally sold it. We're trying to regularize that. They're bringing everything else into it. That's the difference it is. They know about Luvu Seaside. See, the point is, people like Honorable Saukuru, coming from Vitongo.
What is that? Luvu Seaside is native land. Luvu Seaside is native land. Please don't mislead Parliament.
You have the floor, Honorable.
Sir, if you let me finish the sentence, right? My point is that Luvu Seaside, of course we all know his native title. My question to you was, and to him and to all those people, what are they doing about the development of it? What are they doing about development? We are now going to pay them the market rental rate, where we've taken out development leases over it, to develop it to proper roads. What they're doing is Vakavunu arrangements. They're not realizing the full value of the Itoke land. That was my point. You see, he's now looking the other way, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I also wanted to make is this. One of the issues that had been raised was, Honorable Rosova talked about PS housing. If the Director of Lands is the one who's going to be issuing the cancellation and re-entry of the land, etc., then obviously it needs to have an independent committee. And obviously it's to do with housing, because otherwise you have the PS Lands is in the committee itself. You see, again, these kind of trying to create this some kind of, some underhanded dealing going on. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I also wanted to make was about Honorable Pio Tikundundua talked about, government is boring. I mean, I did not know we're supposed to have disco lights and be all fancy and dancing and have shining neon lights. The people of Fiji, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Fijian public don't want lights and glamour. They want actual traction on the ground. They want free education. They want subsidized electricity. They want water. They want roads and bridges and jetties. His leader, the other day went on about, Walesi, $10 million. They are forcing TV stations to join them. Why? My TV can't even pay its license fees. We've allowed them a repayment system. Do you think a TV company that cannot pay its license fees will have the ability to set up its own infrastructure tower in Lau, in Rotuma, in inland Viti Levu? Have they bothered to understand what Walesi is about? Walesi is about setting up infrastructure so every TV company can access and have their programs aired everywhere in Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Exciting.
Naoe Malu in the interior of Naitasiri. PM went on a horseback. Those people are now getting Walesi TV. They are watching what you are saying in Parliament. Lau, Rotuma, all of those places, Mr. Speaker, sir. These TV companies have no upfront capital expenditure. No upfront capital infrastructure cost, Mr. Speaker, sir. They focus on programming. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is, they come here and try and obfuscate issues. In the same way, Honorable Bhiman Prasad and all of the others went on about, and I said this before and I'll say it again, about Honorable PM going overseas, me going overseas. He went for medical treatment in New Zealand. Rambuka went for medical treatment overseas.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order.
Done, Mr. Speaker, sir.
The problem with this man, Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Speaker, is that he keeps lying. I've never said, I wish the Prime Minister well, I never said why he went overseas for medical treatment. Never. Never said that. All I said was,
order.
Be transparent about the Prime Minister of this country. He's the Prime Minister. That's what I said. I never questioned, so don't lie,
Mr. Speaker, sir, they did say it, Mr. Speaker, sir, and they said it outside Parliament also. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, is this kind of hypocrisy and small-time political point scoring that continues not just outside Parliament, but inside Parliament, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is this, that this government, as Honourable Sher Ratu had highlighted before, that we are empathetic, that we look at what people need. In the same way, help for homes. Mr. Speaker, sir, we put in $125 million after Winston to help people build their homes. $110 million, Mr. Speaker, sir. We react to what people need, the society needs, Mr. Speaker, sir. In the same way with the 2 rounds of $360, 2 rounds of $50, 1 round of $90, the $500 million injected into the economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is that we have a long-term perspective on growth. We provide security. We provide stability. We provide decisive leadership, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that's what this government is all about, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I very quickly like to mention, of course, is that a lot of one Honorable Gavoka talked about, we will go and look at it, and then we'll, do an assessment. The supermarkets before Korovuto, they have been now mortgaged to banks. So suddenly, they want to do precisely what Lesini and Garase wanted to do, was set up this land claims tribunal. Provide uncertainty. It will completely undermine the financial system in Fiji. Nobody will know exactly what security you have in your tenure. Even freehold land will be threatened. That's what they're proposing. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course, yes, that's what you're proposing. So suddenly freehold is okay, but crown land is not.
Honourable, misleading Parliament, I said there will always be security of tenure, no matter the situation. So please, can he stop misleading Parliament, please? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, security of tenure under what conditions? When you already have a lease, for example, a crown lease, that's deposited and held as a mortgage with a bank, and suddenly you're going to now come and say, halfway through the lease, I'm going to change this, that will undermine the financial system. That's precisely my point. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, getting back to the point again, to the bill itself, Mr. Speaker, sir, the particular amendment, as highlighted previously, is confined to those leases, or confined to lands where leases were actually issued. People who have now residing on those lands, they will now be able to get a proper lease. Prior to them getting a proper lease, the committee, and as highlighted also in the Amendment 2, there will be various regulations that will be built around governing the parameters of the committee, what they need to do. For example, they will probably need to get meetings. We've already had meetings in many of those places, sir, and that's the consultation that has taken place. Once that is done, then the Director of Lands actually can then re-enter. I'm not talking about physically re-entering, but from a legal perspective, re-enter, and then issue proper leases to all these people. The Town and Country Planning can now come and do the roads, the drains. Honourable Minister for Health highlighted it's actually a sanitary and hygiene issue. And then these people will be able to get proper leases, sir. And again, the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, they've said, why haven't we done it in the past 16 years? Of course, many of these issues we've tried to resolve. Honourable Minister Koya will also tell you, the former Minister for Lands will tell you, Honourable Usamate was up in the Nosori Highlands. There's also in other places where people have sold off. We've tried to resolve these issues. It's only after we've come against a brick wall, a legal brick wall, that we've had to make this amendment. Otherwise, it cannot be done. So we've tried and made all attempts to do so, work within the framework, but we could not. And we had to have this legal amendment, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I can tell you, since we proposed this last night and table this, I've had so many people texting me messages saying, thank you very much. We will now be able to get proper leases and build proper homes. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we want to tell them that we will work as quickly as possible to be able to ensure that we'll be able to offer them proper leases, indeed provide them some security for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I thank the Attorney General for his reply. Honourable members, the Parliament will now vote. The question is, pursuant to the resolution of Parliament on Wednesday, 11th May 2022, that the State Lands Amendment Bill 2022 be debated, voted upon, and be passed. Does any member oppose the motion? Yes. Does any member oppose the motion? Yes. There being opposition, the Parliament will now vote. Open the vote. Close the vote. Honourable Minister Akbar is connecting virtually. She's aware that I will call on her for the vote. Minister Akbar, you can vote now.
Support the bill, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Let's take a note of. Close the vote.
The results of the vote are as follows. 30 ayes, 14 noes, and 7 have not voted.
The results of the vote being 30 ayes, 14 nays, and 7 not voted. The motion is therefore passed. Secretary General.
A bill for an act to amend the State Lands Act 1945, Bill number 26 of 2022, enacted by the Parliament of the Republic of Fiji.
Thank you, honourable members. It's been a long session. You now deserve your lunch, so we will break for lunch and resume at 2:30.